The highway was quiet, bathed in the soft glow of streetlights flickering in the distance. It was the kind of late-night drive I had come to enjoy. Long stretches of empty road, the hum of the engine keeping me company, and the occasional breeze slipping through a slightly cracked window. After a long day at work, the drive home offered a small but welcome respite, a moment to unwind before finally collapsing into bed. I had driven this route 100 times. The road was predictable, straightforward exits, minimal traffic at this hour, and no surprises. But tonight, something felt off. As I rounded a slight bend in the highway, my headlights swept across something unexpected. An orange traffic cone sitting squarely in the middle of the lane. My breath caught as I quickly swerved into the next lane to avoid it. The cone wasn't marked by construction signs or barriers, just sitting there, solitary and unmissable. Puzzled, I slowed slightly and glanced in the rearview mirror. The cone was still there, glowing faintly under my tail lights as I left it behind. I shook my head, chalking it up to kids playing pranks, or maybe a worker forgetting to clear the road. But as I drove on, unease lingered in the back of my mind. It was such an unlikely place for a cone to be, and the fact that it was unaccompanied by any other signs or context made it stranger. A few miles later, just as I was starting to relax, I saw another one. This time, the cone was placed near the shoulder, tilted slightly as if it had been knocked over. I slowed the car, my eyes scanning the area for any sign of construction or maintenance, but there was nothing, just the cone sitting there, alone. My pulse quickened as the thought crept in. What if someone put it there deliberately? I shook my head, trying to dismiss the unease. Cones could appear for all sorts of reasons: debris, roadside repairs, even stray animals causing obstructions. There had to be a logical explanation, but when I passed a third cone, positioned upright in the center of a merging lane, the unease hardened into something closer to fear. 3 cones in 3 separate spots, each more inexplicable than the last. It didn't feel random anymore. I glanced at the dashboard clock, 12:47 a.m., then back to the dark stretch of highway ahead. The solitude of the roads, once comforting, now felt oppressive, as though something or someone was orchestrating this strange series of events. The third cone had been too much. 3 cones in different places, all on the same highway, all without any logical explanation. My thoughts churned as I gripped the steering wheel, my nerves fraying with each passing mile. The solitude of the highway, once comforting, now felt like a trap. It was just me and these cryptic objects, and I couldn't shake the sense that they were leading me somewhere, though I had no idea where. The clock on the dashboard ticked to 12:58 a.m., the minutes dragging by in a slow crawl. My fingers tapped anxiously against the wheel as my eyes darted between the road and the mirrors, scanning for anything out of the ordinary. The wind outside howled faintly, rattling through my slightly cracked window. It was the only sound apart from the hum of the engine. As I approached the next stretch of road, my high beams picked up something ahead, another cone. This one was tipped onto its side, a faint scuff mark tracing where it had rolled across the asphalt. My pulse quickened as I slowed the car, leaning forward to inspect it as I passed. It felt deliberately placed, as if someone had set it there to force me to notice. My stomach churned with unease. Was I being watched? Just as I started to accelerate, my headlights illuminated something farther up the road. A cluster of cones, scattered haphazardly across the center lanes. I braked hard, the car jerking as my tires skidded slightly on the asphalt. My heart pounded as I surveyed the scene. There were at least 5 cones this time, their orange surfaces glowing faintly under the glare of my headlights. They formed no clear pattern, but were spaced just far enough apart to suggest intent. I pulled over onto the shoulder, my hands shaking as I turned on my hazard lights. The cones sat motionless in the middle of the road, but the eerie stillness around them felt alive, as if the night itself were waiting for me to make a move. My eyes darted to the tree line on either side of the highway. The dense forest loomed, its shadows impenetrable, hiding whatever or whoever had left the cones behind. I grabbed my phone, hoping to call someone for advice, but the screen read, "No service." My stomach sank. The isolation was suffocating. My thoughts raced. Should I get out and move the cones, or should I turn back the way I came? As I sat frozen, debating my next move, a faint sound reached my ears. The crunch of gravel, steady and deliberate, coming from somewhere behind me. The crunching sound behind me was faint at first, almost indistinguishable from the night's ambient noises. But as the seconds stretched out, it grew louder, more deliberate. My body went rigid, every instinct screaming for me to act. I threw a glance into the rearview mirror, but the road behind me was shrouded in darkness. The cones lay scattered ahead, untouched, yet the sensation of being watched became unbearable. I clenched the steering wheel, debating my options. Should I get out and confront whoever or whatever was out there? Or should I turn the car around and leave? A surge of adrenaline urged me to act quickly. I flipped off the hazard lights, plunging the area into near silence except for the faint hum of the engine. That's when I noticed it. In the faint reflection of my side mirror, a shadow moved across the glow of my taillights. It was brief, fleeting, but unmistakable. I swallowed hard, refusing to turn and look directly. My heart raced as I reached for the gear shift, my hands trembling. Before I could press the gas, there was a loud, metallic bang on the rear of the car, a deliberate strike. My breath hitched, and for a moment, I froze, paralyzed by fear. Whoever was out there wasn't hiding anymore. I forced myself to act, shifting the car into reverse, intending to back away from the scene and make a U-turn. But as the car inched backwards, the cones ahead seemed to shift in the shadows. At first, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me, but then I saw it clearly. One of the cones rolled slightly, as if it had been nudged. My pulse spiked. I slammed the brakes and locked the doors, every nerve in my body on high alert. Seconds later, a figure emerged from the edge of the tree line. They moved into the glow of my headlights. A man in a dark hoodie, his face obscured by the shadows. He walked calmly toward the cones, his movements deliberate, like someone finishing a task. Without acknowledging me, he bent down, adjusted one of the cones, and then stepped back to admire his work. The deliberate nature of his actions sent a chill down my spine. My gaze darted between him and the road behind me, searching for an escape. Suddenly, he turned his head toward my car, his face coming into partial view. A smirk tugged at his lips, as though he was daring me to act. My instincts kicked in, and I floored the gas, swerving around the cones and speeding down the highway. The man didn't follow, but his silhouette in my rearview mirror stayed burned in my mind. I didn't stop until I reached my driveway. Even now, I can't explain what happened, but I know one thing. Those cones weren't random. Someone had been waiting.